food, and I'm happy now.
Right. Just waiting. Oh, hello. Welcome back to the Distorted Whovians podcast. Hello, I'm Matt, your host, and we're here live on a very special edition. I know it's not your intervention because we're here for the LGBTQ plus month. I hope I've got this all right because it keeps changing consistently. So, welcome to the Pride special. And as you can tell, everyone's in the house this evening. Let's go around and get the introductions. Hello, Ace. Welcome back, Ace.
Why, hello there.
Yes, welcome back. And to you, Connor.
Hello
Would you
there.
like to give your introduction?
Hello, I'm Connor. we are. You've seen me before.
Yes, and it won't be the last, hopefully. and
I'll get rid of that
That's
easily.
really ominous.
you know what? They always say save the best to last. It's time to face the Raven again with Raven.
Thank you. Hello. I'm here yet again.
General
one of our
Kenobi.
one of our most consistent people who's been on more podcasts in here than any other member besides myself.
Yeah. I'm a permanent fixture now.
Yes. And a shout out to Matteo and to all the people who couldn't make it this evening, and to Uber Daniel. Well, we always hear your voices with us.
I don't think anyone else will know like Daniel as the name.
Well, don't worry. If you don't know who Uber Daniel is, we'll get him a Twitter account that says Uber Daniel for you.
Yeah, we've got to change his name.
Yes, so tonight on a very special edition, we'll be covering quite a bit. So we're going to start with, what does Pride mean to you as a Whovian? So basically, as we know, Doctor Who is in a consistent change for the last 2 years. Representation has been strong with the show, starting back with, you could say, Russell T Davis's era. And the diversity of the show has completely changed with Chris Chibnall's both on screen and off. To someone like me, representation means it's great to see everybody's all walks of life that keep coming into the show, because I personally find when you see somebody who doesn't feel represented, they see themselves. Like when Joe Martin was cast as the Doctor, a lot of friends could see themselves as that Doctor because it was the first time a woman of colour was cast as the Doctor. And to me, that's exactly what the show needed. You just need very important minor changes, because obviously you don't want the show to stay the same, because back in the 1960s to 1989 it was getting there. Casts were being seen, casts were being heard, because they went from minor characters to becoming main players. And here we've had doctors, we've had companions. Personally, we need to keep pushing it forward, and I think RTD2 is where it's heading. It's going to be fantastic because of the likes of Lenny Rush, the likes of Jinx Monsoon. It's going to be brilliant. It's here for a wonderful ride. But as I say, I personally believe it's fantastic, and I can. But my voice, as a person who's not, from this side of it, I'm completely still new and following all of it. But if you want a voice on the side of it, let's go to Connor. What does it mean to you, like Pride to you as a Whovian?
I think like pride and diversity and sort of celebration of just a mixture of different groups of people, especially like queer people. With like in the 1990s, the ending Section 28, where you couldn't have like any kind of mention of that in TV, and then Doctor Who bring that in slowly over time, with that being quite a wide-ranging show. It's a British show primarily, but it explores all over the world and all over the universe. You're going to meet a whole bunch of different people, and having all these like queer characters for representation is great, especially trying to move on with the times. And just having characters of all sorts of groups in general is quite a nice thing, really. And it sort of represents the kind of like mixed culture we have in Britain. With like a lot of diversity in terms of race, gender, identities, and sexualities. It's great, I think, really. And the way that, especially with RTD2, as we're calling it, is bringing in a lot a lot more characters of different types of backgrounds, I think is great. Obviously, the show's been doing this for years now since it came back in 2005, and we've had all these different storylines with like Thasmin in the Chibnall era, which some people might not be fans of, but it's still a form of representation. And Bill, Clara, lesbian and bisexual, all sorts, and we're getting trans characters coming along as well in RT2. So yeah, I think it's great, and it means a lot that we're seeing this kind of LGBTQ plus rep in Doctor Who.
Yes, and to follow on that note as well, the great thing about it is, like, I know people are a bit miffed about being with Disney Plus, but that will project it onto newer heights with America. That'll go into new places that people haven't seen. Like, who'd ever would have thought we'd be talking next year about 2 Doctors going to be on there, loads of representations going to be on Disney for the next year into so many countries, and that's going to be a huge bonus for people who don't feel like they can speak out about it, when they can see themselves in like the show like Doctor Who, which has always been like people who find like connection with those aliens and finding themselves within it. And I just think it's going to be great for the show personally.
Yeah.
But Ace, what does representation? I jumped at the topic, but what does pride mean to you as a Whovian?
Oh god, this is a hard topic to talk about. It's more or less just, I think, something that should have been more easier to accept, considering that it's a sci-fi show about a time traveler in a police box that's infinitely massive. I can go anywhere in space and time, and the person changes bodies, and it's from a race of people who changes bodies. And so seeing queer people and people of LGBT plus, it's different skin color, different disabilities or whatever, it should be more simple to look at them and go, that's in the show now, and it should be just seen as natural. And the fact that it's taken this long is worrying, but also really good that it's actually finally happening with Gatwa and like Joe Martin and stuff coming to the show. And Connor, how dare you miss out the best companion, Ace? Literally, the first queer companion possible, because she was canonically bisexual in the show back in the day. She was meant to be a lesbian, but she couldn't be allowed it because shows suck. And it is actually confirmed as well that she's bisexual, because in one of the audios, the Grey Man, is it? The one of she kisses another female in that one. So it's literally a canon thing. So no one can disgrace that. And also other characters like Benny Summerfield and all that stuff as well, who are other media, yes, but still have like heavy influence on like the LGBT scene in Doctor Who. Same with like Chris Quedge as well from the future and all that stuff. They've all been in it for so long, who's been like bisexual and like just LGBT. But now seeing it finally properly being on the show and like it finally advancing with its representation, as we've seen with like newer like releases of like actors being coming through, as we've been seeing, and even Gatwa himself being the first main role colored Doctor. No offense to Joe Martin, she's absolutely incredible, but like seeing a full-time actor though is what I've been wanting for ages, and he looks incredible. So this is really important to me, definitely, and probably to a lot of other people as well. So it's a good thing, definitely.
Yeah, and on that note, Ace, as well, when you were listing off the expanded universe, for Big Finish is saying the biggest thing for representation was when they announced Rebecca Root was playing Tanya Bell, the first ever trans companion, which the show still ideally needs. Doctor Who, you could essentially have all walks of life walk through the TARDIS, and to be honest, I loved how they handled that story. It was completely normal, and that's what people are afraid of doing with these topics, is making it a normal subject. Some people treat it still as like dirty talk or whatever, but that's a whole completely other subject. But Raven, what does pride mean to you as a Whovian?
I mean, it should more be about it just not being a hidden away thing. I mean, the main concept of pride is it being the opposite of shame and it being sort of hidden away. It's, it says something when like literally the first ever director of Doctor Who was a gay man, and yet like it took so long for like openly gay characters and stuff to really be in the show. So it's more about normalizing it, especially like when it comes to Doctor Who, which is like, as shows go, like is very gay. Like it's very like inherently camp and like off kilter and stuff, and goes against the grain and stuff. Like if there was ever a show where like queerness can just naturally like fit into it, it's Doctor Who. And I feel like that was what Russell T Davies especially did in 2005, where like, yes, there was some gay characters and stuff like Jack, for example, in the first series. But like it was also up in like the campness of it as well, and like having that like perspective as well. It's not just about it being on screen, it's bringing more queer perspectives behind it as well. So I think that both of those things are as important as each other, because like as Connor mentioned about like Thasmin, for example, like we know that was an afterthought and is written predominantly by a straight guy, with no real experience in writing like queer relationships. So it's like, yes, that's good that we got that bit of representation, but without queer voices more prominent as well, you only get watered down stuff as well.
Which is completely which is completely understandable. Is we're in an ever-changing show, and while it has been controversial, the whole Fassman thing, because it was written by a particular gentleman who is married with his own wife or whatever, and you don't really get that perspective of what it's like seen through the eyes of other people. I find the strength in the Big Finish writers is that they go out and research it. They have friends who actually are. That's why things like Stranded is one of the most regarded series, because when they go into a relationship between Tanya and Liv, it's basically, we're not going to spoil too much for people who don't listen to it or have not heard the story yet, but in the sense, they've researched everything to make sure it was respective of the source material, respective of that community, to make sure it would be strong, it'd be natural, and you wouldn't find it like listening to it ashamed. It's one of the most proud storylines they've ever done.
But I think that's the point, isn't it? It's not just like, in case my point wasn't like super clear, it's not just like Chibnall's straight guy writing like a lesbian like relationship or something. It's that probably due to that limited perspective, that was not delivered on in the best way, because like I don't think anyone felt like that Bill wasn't written in the best way, despite being written by Moffat, like the straightest guy who will just put in his love for his wife in every single thing that he writes and stuff. So it is about that delivery, but I think by having more diverse voices, you increase the chance of also having better perspectives on that.
Yes, and I think this is where we're going to segue into a different topic, because I was going to leave this as one of the last, but it's relevant to this. So, where do you find the show lacks in representation? So we're going in the different. So let's start with Ace. What do you find that the show lacks in like this kind of representation?
I would say more or less like when it goes to like feature elements of like human society or just like different cultures or different races and stuff like that, the show doesn't really do a too great of a job at like showing this is the future and no one gives a shit about your gender and stuff like that. Now we were all accepting of whatever you were. It's just the typical, here's some humans. All right, what am I meant to do with that? You're not really showing a lot. Yeah, it's in the future, but have they progressed in like the way they accept identities or the way they accept each other, or just what's happening here? I just feel like that type of little bit of information would be a nice little thing to make you really believe it is the future. like when they go to like the New York in like season 2. I feel like that could have been a good opportunity to show stuff like that. It's not like as in like full force in your face, but as in like little nods and stuff. Something simple like that is effective in a massive way that people don't seem to really understand sometimes. Is like we're not asking for like a full on head cross in your face like Bill moment where she constantly keeps bringing it up. We're just asking for little nods that hey, it's here and it's normal, and we're not making it a big deal. There are moments where it can be made a big deal, like with Tanya, but there's also ways of treating it where it doesn't like hit you in the face too hard.
Mm.
That's where I think like it comes in because it kind of it lacks in the responsibility of it tries to be in your face and make you see it, but it keeps doing it in a poorly written way. Like I think Raven said it best: is that you're not actually getting real people who identify as these type of characters, like with Bill or with the situation. You don't really get people who are the same to input their voice and how they would write it instead, or how they would treat it instead of like a straight white man who's like married and stuff. Which is no problem with him doing that. It's fine, but I feel like if he's going to, he should have the input of someone who is what he's writing to help make it feel more better written and better represented. I feel it's the issue for me.
Yeah, I find personally on that note as well, is on the online reaction side, I've seen people generally gel with Phasmin not because of the romance, but because of the struggling to come out and come to terms with it. That side, I completely understand. But then when you've got only a couple episodes left, rather than building it up within 3 series and you're doing it in specials, then I could see that negative side of it, that you've had a long time to build these characters' relationship and they're essentially leaving in about 3 stories. So I completely understand where that's come from, like all the positives and negatives.
I feel like this also comes from a place of where I like Torchwood more than Doctor Who because it does the representation thing a bit better. Mostly when you get to like season 2, like near the end of it. Season 1, it does get a bit too overly sexual and stuff like that, too adultish. It tries to be too edgy. But when you get down to like the actual bare bone romance of it, a lot of it is just like, you see Tosh with another female alien, or you see Owen, having with another guy, or having thoughts of another guy and stuff like that. And then you get into the audio side of it as well. It's more present there, but it's like not really seen as like a big deal. Like Colchester, for example, he's a gay man. He's got a husband, but he's not written as, I'm just a gay man and I've got a husband. He's written as an actual person, and his whole thing isn't just that he's gay.
Yeah,
I feel like it's
and
a good example of how it's better written.
Yeah, and I completely understand that. It all boils down to writing as well sometimes, and which I could also segue into this part. For me, I find the representation of the show has improved a lot, as I say, in the last few years. But at the same time, it's still got ways to go. Writing room has changed, the way the cast and the crew are, but main characters still have got ways to go. And I find what lacks right now is when it comes to romances, it's like the companions outside of the straight side is completely struggled at the minute. If you look at Rose, or if you look at Martha, if you look at Donna, regardless of like what happened to them, they've had like happy ending relationships, same as Amy, Clara. Who knows? I mean, she might have got with me in like all those times because she's bi. Who knows? We'll never know. Bill, she's ended up with like the puddle, but romance and the Doctor Who side, it's just, I don't know. Representation with the Doctor is better, but at the same time, the writing side, it needs those voices to be heard. That's why I'd love it if the writers get like the Big Finish approach, where they go and talk to actual people to get actual thoughts when they're writing these romantic stories now, or else it's just a bit negative personally. Or get writers who've actually lived through that lifestyle. But saying this
on that, because like what something that Ace said kind of reminded me of this, where I do find it interesting that like the show within Doctor Who that's had the best like queer representation is Torchwood, which is the adult one and stuff, and like Torchwood was fucking great for Queer Up. Like, I remember how important that was for me as well when, like, I originally came out, like, 2009, 2010. And, you know, this was, like, peak Torchwood time sort of thing in some ways. And, like, around, like, when Children of Earth, like, came out and being, like, I don't think my parents knew at the time, and being, like, that I wanted to watch Torchwood, and then being like, why do you want to watch that as like the gay show sort of thing like that? So like how important Torchwood was, but like I don't think it's quite telling that queer content was mainly relegated to something that was seen as like more adult only, which is like a common narrative of like that kids shouldn't be able to see queer people.
Yeah, I mean yeah, I want to add on to that. It's kind of like when I mentioned like the coming out of like Section 28. Because obviously that was keeping queer content away from kids in the schools, libraries, TV, all of that in the UK. That was illegal essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So and obviously that being in the early 2000s, which was only a few years after it actually was abolished. Obviously, slowly it's been more like it's for adults, and many people still have that opinion where it's like queer things are for adults. You see it all over Twitter, you know, keep us out of schools with like drag queens and stuff. And obviously we are, you know, making big progress. And obviously Torchwood was an adult show, and then they had that queer rep in there, showing that for the time it was still quite considered very adultish. And then it was sort of the same with Class, but Class was quite an adult sort of thing as well. Maybe not as much as Torchwood, but was still, I think, Class as an adult show, and that also had mainstream queer characters with Charlie Mateus. But we are seeing over time, you know, more queer in Doctor Who as the kids show, essentially, which kids and adults. So it is improving. But yeah, I see what you mean with like how back then it was and still is for some people. Queer's for adults only.
Yeah, because the
I
main
think
show still has problems with like doing all the queerness is what I'm trying to also get at as well. It's like it seems like adult side, like with the spin-offs, have more freedom towards all of this.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I feel like as well to cement the whole torture thing, the scene that really did it for me when it came to the representation was, I don't know if I want to spoil this or not, but the death in Children of Earth. We all know who died in that impactful scene, and the way Yanto, well, anyway, but basically Yanto coming out, basically. But like basically like this Yanto coming out to it was his sister. I think it was his sister.
That was amazing. That scene.
That scene was so goddamn good for its like actual date. Like really, really good. It was so simple and so easily driven. It wasn't too anything over the top. It was just a simple sits down with his family and just explains how he feels.
And
just
it's like, guess what?
So
You
simple.
can tell it was written by RTD. Like,
I know.
I will say it was amazingly funny though. Like the sister couldn't take it at first, and she accepted it. But what would you class it? His brother-in-law was like, "Oh, so you're into it now, are you?" Like the really stereotypical person, and I'm just like, "Get away, you!"
Yeah,
it was a very good scene though, because the way she just kind of like, it wasn't like be all big surprise, but it was more she just like just accepted it and didn't really worry about the fact that it's him liking another man. It was just, well, you're happy and he makes you happy, then I've got no issue with it here.
Yeah. And for me, because obviously I'm a bit younger, so I watched it quite later on after it aired. But that scene, as like for me, a closeted, questioning teenager, that was impactful as well. Because I grew up in a queer, not queer family, Catholic family.
Yeah, it would be a very like impactful scene to watch.
Yeah, so that was kind of like, you know, and I see all these scenes of like coming out, especially recently in Doctor Who. I mean, Class was one of the things that made me more comfortable with my sexuality. You know, seeing that allows people, it doesn't turn people gay, which is what some right wingers think, but like it allows people who are starting to question whether they are or not to be more comfortable in it, seeing it on TV.
it just gives them the like realization to like question themselves and not be too worried about or worry about the fact they need to question themselves or want to if their head is
Yeah.
just so full of these ideas. Just having that comfort of this coming out, say from Yanto or from class or from whatever show, is important because it gives that side of comfort. Maybe not to straight people, maybe not to bisexual or whatever, but to gay people or to whoever. It's just something
Yeah.
as simple as that.
And it just helps to normalize it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something simple like that that means a lot to like the community and just people like us because it just gives us that little bit of comfort we need and the push we need to feel more normal.
Yes.
That's just what it comes down to.
Well, I think we've covered quite a bit about where the lack of representation is in the show, but I would be quite interested because we didn't get much from Connor and Raven's thoughts on it. But so, Connor, what would you say is like the lack of representation with the show? Or do you feel fine with what you've covered?
Lack of representation. I'll say I agree with Ace when it comes to like different cultures. That's something that obviously we are seeing some more of that. We had that with like Teams of the Punjab, for example, Series 11. I can't remember who wrote that, but I'm pretty sure he's of Indian descent. Can't remember the actual name.
Patel.
That's it, yeah. So yeah, and just having more writers of these different backgrounds writing stories. I would love to see the Doctor to go like Asia, modern day, ancient. Explain those cultures. More of Africa, maybe Southern America. All these different cultures and that kind of diversity. Also, I think more disabled diversity in terms of like, we've had some coming along the years, like before the flood under the lake with death. I think it takes you away with the blind character.
Yes, the
I
girl.
want to see more of that as well.
No, absolutely. I
Yeah,
just think the
and
representation.
neurodiverse as well. As an autistic person, I
Yeah.
definitely want to see more of that as well. I want to see an autistic character properly.
I was going to say this. I'm pretty sure the Doctor is already autistic enough as it is, but yeah, I agree. I agree totally.
We need more.
Yeah, on that note, I've seen many people say that most with like 13 people see that with her the most out of all the Doctors at the minute.
Yeah, I think I see different traits of autism in each Doctor. I think a lot of them do kind of have those traits, and obviously you got the whole like people just say, "Oh, it's definitely being all jumpy around," but like some autistic people are like that. I'm like that sometimes when I'm excited. I do physically jump about, or like I show if I'm excited. I'm really excited about something.
One of my sorry, I'm gonna chip in for a second. One of my favorite examples I've seen of like the autistic trait of the Doctor was in the Edge of Destruction, when he talks about the birth of the universe in such like an interesting, like deconstructed way.
Yeah,
It's like a really creepy scene at first, but you realise he's just like really into talking about it.
yeah,
Like talking about the matter construction of the universe and the exploding of suns and stuff.
yeah.
It's such a good scene.
Autistic people showing off their interests. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it is. Special interest, interesting.
Yeah. I did like that scene.
Yeah.
It's
Well, how
little
about
things like that.
yeah? So, how about you, Raven? Where do you think the show lacks in diversity for you?
I don't know. Like, apart from like the points that have already been brought up by Ace and Connor, which I agree with, and similar to Ace's point, actually, like about we've had the fact of like when companions and stuff go back to the past and like where there's been certain viewpoints and there's a certain risk of people going back, and like not as much when people go to the future and the attitudes will have changed and stuff too. I think the only example, because like when I said it, I was thinking like the only example I could think of was when like in series 1 when they say like Jack's not straight, he's like, oh, he's a classic like 51st century guy or something like that. Like that's the only example of that I could think of. But like, yeah, I mean, Doctor Who is predominantly white and stuff, so I do think that, you know, the exploring of other cultures and stuff, and like we haven't had a huge amount of like companions of color really. You know, we've had Martha and Bill and Ryan and Yaz.
And technically Mickey, but what's saying?
Oh yeah. We got Mickey.
You know, we can figure it out.
Yeah, so I mean that it's getting better. Like, I mean, I guess say what you want about Chibnall on that particular front, but out of all, like, I think he was the first of like the modern Who showrunners to like hire like in terms of the writers of episodes, like people of color, which I don't
Yeah,
know if there
like
were
Mallory
any.
Blackman.
Yeah, Mary Blackman wrote Rosa.
Yeah. And who did you say wrote Demons of
Patel.
Punjab as well? Yeah.
Vinay Patel.
Yeah. So I hope that continues as well, because like for me, like Doctor Who in its format just like should be diverse, just because it can do anything and it can go anywhere and stuff. And like the worst thing that Doctor Who can be is boring rather than bad. And so like, you know, if I feel like I'm just watching the same story that I've already seen, even if it's kind of like, this is all right, you don't really remember it. Like, there's so many like bog standard base under siege stories or something like that. But I'd rather take a bit of like a swing and a miss at something that's a bit different. And I feel like you get that more with diverse people behind the production of the show as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was also, when it comes to like showing the future being more accepting of things, there was the line in Oxygen between Bill and Darren, as he liked to say his name was Darren, when Bill was like, I'm usually on the receiving end of racism, and Darren's like, oh, why is that? Like, kind of showing like, you know, they've sort of moved beyond human races being different in terms of it's all human. Whilst they're starting to show that humans are also kind of racist to other species. Like when Bill freaked out because the guy was blue, he goes, oh, we picked up a racist.
Yeah.
It brings a slight dim future to how like humans might still find a way to be prejudiced against others, but then also shows how there is still like progression that has happened.
I want to jump in of another good example as well of like the future actually like showing off that it has progressed is Damaged Goods, the audio or the book, whichever one you want to go for, that has a scene in it with Quedge talking to a gay man, but he's closeted due to the time period. Which what time period is that in again? Oh, I
think it's about the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s, and because the guy was obviously queer, and not queer, sorry, gay. It was very, very obvious because he wants to kiss her and stuff like that, and he kept on coding it because he was too scared. And Quedge just turned around to said to him, "You can just like lay off the coding and just ask for a snog if you want one." Where I come from, no one gives a crap about someone's like gender preferences or whatever. And
Oh, no, it was
like,
1987.
oh, okay. Yeah. And so he's just like, oh, okay then.
Is it that companion with if you've listened to, there was like the New Adventures box set with Seven, and like I can't remember the story, but there was like a trans woman like character in that, and like maybe I shouldn't have tried to guess it because I was like, I have a vague memory where I was like, oh, that's really
there is a Seventh Doctor box set with him and another woman in it as a companion, because they're like the novel companions. That's where they're from, really.
Rod,
that was like the first proper story with like Seven.
Yeah, Rod Forrester, she's quite nuts, but I quite like her.
And and as well as that, like from the actual like time periods them to or from, it is very obvious progressions we've done with the sexuality and stuff like that, because it's hinted along like the books as well as like the actual audios, but it's never like just like in your face. It's kind of just like oh, okay type of thing. Like it's normal. Yeah. That's how it's treated.
Yeah,
which I think is a good thing.
I think that's what the magic of this show is, especially even as someone as progressive as Russell back in the 90s writing a book about a doctor from a time, like putting Seven back into the 80s where people who were closeted, it was quite dangerous, you know. It was a bit...
It was back in the 80s when people were closeted.
well, you know. Well, you know what I'm trying to get at. It's like, you know, it's still one of the most dangerous subjects you could have tackled for like that time period. But Russell just made it normal, and that's what the great thing about it.
And I mentioned as well, like at the end of audio, like the gay man and another man end up adopting children as well. So that's like another big progression thing. People may not seem like it, but it is a very big thing for the time period.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I see it sort of big for today, unfortunately.
Yeah, it still is, which is depressing. But yeah, sadly.
I think the positives of the show is we're literally moving beyond like it's got to be solely exclusive to like the straight narrative because, as I say, for many years we've had male and female companions, but you've never seen two companions get together on the show that of the same gender or the same race, apart from like Martha and Mickey. But do you know what I mean? It's like we need to have more changes like that in the coming years. It'd be quite nice for somebody to say that they could be seen as like the companions on the TARDIS, where it's okay. The Doctor will take on like say two male companions, and they end up on a happy ending and not being bumped off like that security guard from what was it, Resolution?
Rest in peace, the security guard.
Rest
Man,
in
she
peace,
said he was gay.
James.
2 seconds later, he was dead.
I feel like I want to also say like a little quote from Joe Martin as well when she came out as the Doctor. Is like I can't remember what it was exactly, but I know like the hints of it was basically just back in the day when she was told by her brother she couldn't be the Doctor because she was a black female, and the Doctor is a white male, and that always made her upset. But she's ecstatic at the fact that she's moved on and she's gotten to be the first one to play this role and be the representation that children like her used to be gets now. So
Yeah.
that's such a amazing thing to hear from her.
Yeah.
Being
And
in
the
this
thing
time
with
and
Jo
age.
Martin, the thing with Jo Martin, she doesn't get enough recognition on the community as she is the first POC Doctor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
She deserves
Yeah.
more
I find
recognition.
it disgraceful that the news like keeps brushing it under and keeps highlighting Shooty Gatwa more than her.
Yeah, obviously Shooty Gat was our first mainstream POC Doctor, but she's the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that that is definitely something that I bet she is proud of, and she should be. And it's great that we've been able to have 2 POC Doctors so far.
Oh,
Would see more.
I love that she's such a massive fan of both classic and new Who. She said, the Doctor I'd love to have worked with the most is Tom Baker.
She's such a nerd for the show. It's
love
absolutely
her.
beautiful seeing her getting so engaged of just being a representation that she never got to be. Or half, sorry. It's such
Yeah,
a beautiful thing to see, honestly.
On
So-
that, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
And then go on, Raven, you say it, and then I'll go next.
I was going to say, like, just on that point, that it really speaks to just the power of representation and stuff. Like, I know that, like, some people from not, like, underrepresented groups sort of go, like, well, you know, why can't, you know, young girls just relate to, like, male characters and stuff like that? And that's never the issue. Like, it's not that like I couldn't relate to straight characters or like I couldn't relate to cis characters or something. It's that like for me personally, like I grew up with no trans representation outside of Ace Ventura. And it was like, and that is not a good place to go. And so like I grew up genuinely never having heard of what the fuck really a trans person is. And also never having understood that. And it's like, you know, did that end up like delaying like me having certain realizations of myself, and then, you know, living more years of my life unhappy as a result of just not having that information available and not normalizing it. Because I remember, like, this is such a tangent and I won't dwell on it for too long, but like when I came out as like queer originally when I was like 14, it was around the time that like I had a huge special interest in Darren Brown for some reason, and I watched like all Darren Brown stuff and everything, and I didn't know he was gay. And it wasn't like until like I'd watch everything and like I saw something that he was gay, and it was like, oh, there's someone who's gay, and also like wasn't like super flamboyant because I'm not super like that. It's maybe hard to believe. But you know, it was nice seeing someone that was kind of like me that kind of normalized that for me and helped me come out at that age. So
Yeah.
I can really relate to that, honestly, because it's the same for me being a non-binary, which gets, well, pretty much no representation at all. So I kind of do get that, but it was the same for me. It was like by a spark of like one fucking show, sorry. But yeah, it's a spark of like one show which was like an anime as well for its time as well. Orion High School Host Club, which has a female lead, but she ends up being a non-binary because she doesn't go by any conforming pronoun. Because the whole skit of the anime is that she's a male, but also a female because she dresses up like a female and stuff like that. So, and she just says to everyone straight out, like, I don't care what you call me, as long as I get to be me, I'm happy. So that's probably what sparked my thought process of being non-binary. But yeah, I do 100% get that full on. It's hard, but you get there in the end if you think about it enough.
Yeah, and also like what you said with like Raven, like with trans rep, like Doctor Who hasn't had the best probably representation of that. I mean, like we've had bits and bobs, but obviously now we're getting Yasmin Finney.
Really only Yasmin.
There've been mentions of like, I don't want to say it because it's terrible for trans rep, but Cassandra is in canon a trans character. She said she was a little boy once, but but obviously not the best representation.
I never even caught that though.
Like, oh really?
Is that in the episode?
It's quite, she says in the end of the world. It's probably quite a throwaway line, but like, it's there.
And they kind of called back onto our New Earth.
Yeah, but now that we're getting like 2 trans characters, one in the 60th, one in the 14th, series 14. We're getting Yasmin and a trans guy. I can't remember his name.
Yes, and then obviously Bethany Black came on with Moffat, and as I say, Big Finish had Tanya Bell. Trans rep is changing when it comes to a show about time travel at the minute.
Yeah, and so within the queer community, trans rep is something that's still lacking in TV in general. But now that Doctor Who onto one showrunner in 1 year is getting 2 trans characters so far. Yeah, and hopefully we get some non-binary characters too. Maybe a non-binary doctor, a trans doctor.
Oh,
as Colin Baker said, he wants himself a non-binary doctor.
Better get one then.
On that note, Russell did admit during the audition process, look, contrary to what's gone on with Shooty Gatwa, he auditioned men, he auditioned women, and he auditioned one non-binary person. So he's not opposed to it. It's for the best person for the job. So he will cast one day another diverse type of doctor, but please, for the love of God, somebody get an Irish doctor.
Yes. I want an Irish doctor for them to literally go, oh, I'm ginger. Oh, I don't fucking like the collar. Just like something like that. Yeah.
So, who would you say that is your favourite main character that you find have like good representation with this show? Personally, for me, I'll start that one. I think for me, it was in some ways I'd say it's Jack. He's been the most invested one in terms of representation of being with men, women, aliens, whatever. He doesn't care. To him, as long as you've got legs, you are basically on his radar. But the heartwarming sense of it, Jack on Torchwood, I'd find is a much stronger character than he was on the show. On the show, he's more like a campy caricature. But when you see his relationship with Yanto, he would have died for him. But if he still had that sense of morality, I think he was Russell's most consistent, like, queer character from Era 1. So I'm hoping for Era 2 that there is a different sense of, like, strong world building in the sense of, like, who's going to be the next one for him? Who's going to pass that baton to be the next strongest queer character that he can invest into? Connor, who would you say has been good representation for you as your favourite character?
1 minute.
1 minute's a very good character. Never heard of them.
Must be so underground that I don't know about them.
Oh yes, it's so underground. Not even Big Finish has wrote their origin yet.
Big Finish hasn't gotten there yet. They're still like 2 years behind.
Yeah, they're still waiting for Tom Baker to record 60 years in advance.
Oh, that man's never dying.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and then you get John Culshaw. He's like, I'm ready now, and it's the year 2016. He's like, but I'm retired.
Leave me alone. Big Finish, we're here for your money.
Oh, Connor's back.
I'm back.
To pick up on the question, who would you say out of the main characters would you find has had good representation for you?
I know people are going to hate me for it, but I'm going to say Bill, just because obviously, I know everyone memes about her saying she's gay every 5 minutes, which is not true. I think she said it
Yeah,
3
she
times,
doesn't. Yeah.
maybe 4 at a stretch. And it's usually times when guys are flirting with her. So,
Yeah.
which is quite understandable. A lot of people do go, especially lesbian, women will go, "Oh, I'm
Which
not into men."
happens. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite normal. But yeah, I think having Bill as like a main series gay companion, and openly about it, having relationships with many women, yeah, I think that was great, especially for me, who's still, when Series 10 came out, I hadn't came out. I was still in the closet, and I was still a bit, like, is being gay okay? And seeing that in Doctor Who with a companion, I think was great. And also seeing 12 was just cool with it. Like when she's like in the Doctor Falls, all about women, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, he doesn't give a shit. It's like, it's normal to him. And I think that was also just a great thing. So I love that to the 12th Doctor a lot.
Cool granddad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, on that note of that era, it was probably one of the best eras as well for representation. I know we had Chibnall that followed afterwards with like the cast, but in terms of what the natural romance between her and Heather, it was so fun to watch an arc about a woman who literally got turned into a puddle who chased the universe for Bill and then brought her back to life. I just think that was something as pure besides somebody getting trapped on a parallel Earth that overshadowed somebody's era for 2 years.
Yeah. Nice that they get to be together forever as well in the end. So they get like a nice happy story. Because obviously Bill does die, but then they're sort of like, oh, I can just turn you human whenever you want.
Well, then you got people the next episode like, how did she end up with testimony then if she's technically dead? Well, these thousands of years, who knows when Bill popped her clogs?
Well,
Dies at some
they
point.
have everyone who dies, so it's just she
Yeah.
died at some point.
She died
Yeah,
at
I
some
had Peter Davison was in there somewhere, like narrating to come back.
Yeah, and they just kept like her young face instead of making her old. Yeah.
Yes, instead of Pensioner Clara from like when she was supposed to die.
Oh God.
Yes. So for you, Raven, who would you say has been your favourite character with representation?
Oh no! Because you took both of my my top two. I was like, right. Matt said Jack, so I'll go Bill, and then
And then I
You can
arrived.
still pick the same one. Like, we're not here to shoot yet.
I do think Jack. Like Jack was my number one pick. Like that had such a big impact, and like especially with Torchwood, of leading a show and having like a character trying to be the Doctor, just maybe failing at it a bit, but like they're trying to be the Doctor. And like, yeah, it just made such a big impact on me. Watching Torchwood.
Yeah, what I liked to with his Doctors 9, 10, and 13, Torchwood, it made Jack a very different character for me. He didn't feel like he was a caricature, as I stated before, and he felt like he genuinely cared for everyone. And he was so heartbroken during Children of Earth, losing the love of his life, losing essentially, like, I'm trying to remember, he had a daughter. So, I mean, like, the relationship with his daughter, his grandson, he was virtually broken. I think Children of Earth still should have been the final Torchwood show because it proved how strong it was for Jack that he fled Earth because he was so broken by everything.
Yeah, you're not going to get many complaints of like that Children of Earth should have been the last of Torchwood, like after how Miracle Day went. But
yeah,
Actually, Miracle Day.
Ace, for you, who would you say from the main companions or any character of the show? You quoted a few expanded media. Who would you say has been your favourite main character with good representation?
Well, I'm going to actually go with two people here, but one's an actor because I feel like he deserves actually a shout out for him being him. But first one I'm going to pick is Mr. Colchester because if you've listened to anything he's in, just incredible, absolutely incredible gay representation. I've never loved a gay representation more than him. He is my favorite. He's so on point with how it should be done. It's unreal how perfectly he is written, along with his husband as well. His husband is so incredible in the newest box set as well. The second story of his husband being the main focus had me in absolute tears because it was so heartbreaking, honestly. And for the actor, I'm going to say a shout out Colin Baker because he is the most supportive person for this show, ever.
Well,
If you read
he's
anything
literally
he
like,
says about the show, he's up for anything. He wants a female doctor. He wants different races. He wants different genders and stuff happening more often. He wants more representation. He is so supportive of all this and moving forward. He wants more of it. He wants to be such a part of it too. That man is so fun to read about when he's talking about the show because he's so passionate.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
he gets too much slack for his doctor, but yet he is probably the most passionate of all of them.
Yes. And on that note as well, I saw old interviews on YouTube. Sidney Newman, who helped create the show, as well as Patrick Troughton, both expressed one day the show could essentially have a female doctor because anybody could be the doctor. It's not been solely exclusive. Patrick said it best, well, in the show about aliens and police box, so why can't we have a female? Maybe one day we could have one. And then it did years after he passed in Jodie. The doors are open. We're essentially in wonderful times now where anyone can be the doctor.
Yeah, they were close after the fourth Doctor, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
They were definitely like, okay, after Tom Baker, we're gonna have a female Doctor, and then they got Pete Davidson instead, which kind of the same thing, I guess. But
People would love being called a woman now, but I think Colin would take shots.
Honestly, just listen to the way he speaks about Jodie and how he's got so much passion for her, and how he was so in love with her.
He come to set for Power of the Doctor because he wanted to meet her personally.
Or even see the way he's been reacting to Gatwa's incoming as being the new Doctor. He's been full on headstrong supportive of him. He's been absolutely in love of all the changes with the costumes and stuff. He's been so vocal about how much he's loving the progression, different actors coming in and stuff.
Oh, he did make me laugh about that at Gallifrey when I said, "Are you excited about David and Shoot?" He said, "I don't know nothing. I tend to be surprised, these days by all this stuff."
He is he's probably the way I would say is how a human should be reacting towards the changes incoming with TV and progression with just having more prominent people of color, people of sexuality and all that stuff being a leader role. It should be how he reacts is just full supportive and is in love with it and treats it as it should be a normal thing. That's how I feel like everyone should be doing it because it's so amazing. Yeah.
I'll say on that note as well, even though Shooty doesn't talk openly about his sexuality and stuff like that, and we haven't seen him on screen yet, at the very least, he's very, very supportive of the queer community, the most support that you could be. He may be queer, who knows, whatever. But if he is, then first queer Doctor. And if not, then again following Colin, and also how much David Tennant has spoken in favor of queer people and stuff. David Tennant just is the Doctor, and stuff, and that it's what that character should be, and the ambassadors of the show should be.
Yeah, I think we rarely see David Tennant without his non-binary pin now. Yeah. He's got non-binary children, hasn't he? So we rarely see him without that, and I think that's great.
It's so amazing how supportive he is of his children coming out.
14 should have had that on his jacket.
Yeah. I find the funniest interview recently from Shooty is how he accidentally kept leaking in a bathroom in Soho to anyone he kept meeting. He said, "I'm the Doctor,
Oh, I just love his energy so much.
He said, "I hope I didn't get into trouble." It was before the announcement as well. He kept telling random people. I said, I hope they don't think I'm mad because we're a bit drunk in here.
Also, on a side note, I love how quite a few of the costumes that we've seen him in are sort of slightly queer coded as well. So it's regardless of anything else, I think that's something that straight audiences don't pick up on as much as queer culture and stuff isn't just about like the sexuality and stuff like that of people. Like there's an entire culture that's evolved like separately and like within wider culture and stuff that is its own distinct thing. And which is kind of what I meant about like, even though the first RTD era didn't have a huge amount of gay rap, it did have some, like I said, but also it started in 2005. Very, very different time. But like it was very, very queer coded throughout.
Mm.
Yeah, because back in that time, he had such a responsibility on his shoulder. If Eccleston didn't work out after Series 1, BBC was ready to say, well, we've had a nice try. We're not going to do the show again. So it was such a gamble to put as much queer reference as he did in Series 1, as well as he got away with before Series 2 came about. And if he didn't do it, Doctor Who wouldn't even be considered now to be in a 60th anniversary. We wouldn't have had so many amazing creatives work on the show. We wouldn't even be discussing the next era if it hadn't been for that gamble with Eccleston and Piper back in 2005. If it failed, Doctor Who would have just died with both Sylvester and Eccleston, the Scotsman and the Manchester one.
Also, like, can we just mention the fact that in 2005 they had the Doctor and Jack kiss full-on snog without a care in the world for the time period, just full-on on-screen, front and center face snog.
Despite whatever you think about Eccleston not liking that one, but that's another story.
Yeah, and for a children's show, that would have been quite revolutionary, to be honest.
It was quite a big thing.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when Jack goes and kisses the woman and kisses the Doctor, like when he kisses Rose, and then when you're like, oh, this is a bit fresh.
A bit fresh. He's had some mint before. Good.
Oh, that's a bit fresh.
So what we're going to also talk about, because obviously I've had a different mindset about this, been boggling it. So who would you like to see casted that has been on the show yet from queer representation? I could go and say Kit Connor, because obviously, though he did Adventure in Space and Time, he is like Yaz at the full-blown centre of Heartstopper at the minute. So he's already building up his celebrity status. So the show needs more queer representation. But for you, Connor, who would you like to see as well from the queer side that would like to come onto the show in your view?
Very good question. Who would? I don't know. No one's coming to mind at the moment, but like it just in general, I would like a lot more queer representation. Mainly just to piss off the homophobes, but also, you know, like, yeah, I definitely want to see. Obviously, we don't know Ncuti's sexuality, but I do want to see a openly gay actor play the Doctor one day. I can't really think of who. Kit Connor would be amazing to have in Doctor Who, just because, you know, especially like he doesn't just represent like the bisexual community, but also he represents people who have unfortunately been forced into showing who they are without not actually wanting to or not wanting to talk about it that much. But yeah, I can't really think of any specific actors that I want in Doctor Who, but just in general, just more.
Yes, how about you, Ace? Who would you want?
Oh god, that's hard. I'm not good with actors' names. That's the issue with me. I don't remember half of them. I just see faces and go, yes, I like him.
You try to think of like who's played a gay role. A lot of them end up being straight anyway. So it's
it's quite funny actually, because I just typed in on my Google to remember some actors' names, LGBT actors, and I scrolled down and I saw Russell T Davidson on the list. So I find that quite funny.
I would love to
see because he does voice roles.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say who it actually wants. I mean, really is hard to say. I honestly don't know. I feel like I just want to have like at least one non-binary like lead something, even if it's not the Doctor. I just want a lead present role for one episode. That will do me enough.
I'll tell you what, Ace, on that one then, if you couldn't play it properly. What one springs to mind to be Elliot Page would also be a good one.
Yeah, it would be. It would be a very good one.
And Emma D'Arcy as well. They're from House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, and you know it'd be following the tradition of having Game of Thrones actors coming to Doctor Who and vice versa. Because you know those shows share actors all the time. But you know,
Yes,
Emma
yes.
Darcy, they're quite a good actor, and yeah, maybe one day the Doctor or a companion or just a character who comes in every now and then.
Yeah, but like Dave, like how they shed David Bradley or Ian McElhenney, Game of Thrones people always seem to end up on this show.
Yeah.
But
I
for you,
don't
Raven,
know.
who would you quite like that's a queer representation to you to be on the show?
Yeah, I've also been trying to Google in the background because I'm like, who are all of the queer actors and stuff? But I got reminded that Abigail Thorne from like Philosophy Tube and stuff acts and whatnot as well, so that'd be good trans rock as well.
Mm.
So Abigail Thorne, yeah. I'm really struggling to for all of the talk of like, oh, queer people taking over, we're really struggling to think.
It's because a lot of queer characters, and I'm not against it, but do end up being played by straight actors. Not all of them, obviously, but like there is quite a significant number, and I'm not against it because the straight actors, they're actors in the end. Like, they're playing somebody else, and I think that's fine. But when it comes to trying to think of like gay actors or queer actors, it's really difficult.
I will say the one time I've actually like the straight actor playing a gay one was Andrew Garfield playing what's that movie called again? The musical one that he won the award for.
Oh, Tick Tick Boom.
Yeah, that's the one. He
Yeah.
was incredible in that.
Holy always hinted like Andrew Garfield is he not? But that's for him to decide. No, we're not here to judge what his preference is.
Who even knows if Andrew Garfield's bi, let's.
Yeah, that's
what
I hear the most.
He is. I'm convinced he is, but we can't assume.
I just don't think he really cares that much. I think he just kind of goes with the flow. Honestly, that's how I see him.
For a second, I was like, "Oh, let's get like Miriam Margolyes, like famous lesbian," but she's beat the fucking meat. So,
well, could you imagine her being the Doctor after being beat the meat?
So,
like how Caclius got the face. Could you imagine like the Doctor looks at beat the meat and turns into Miriam Margolyes?
Oh, I actually do have one because I was recently watching the show Feel Good, which, if that title is not accurate, it's traumatic. I did not feel good. But May Martin, I've become mildly obsessed, and yeah.
I feel like I think for Doctor Who, I do want to see it become more naturally diverse, and I think a good example of something that I found was naturally diverse watching it was the new Spider-Man movie. Watching that was such a good experience because there was literally every type of diversity in that you could think of. Like there was even a Spider-Woman on a wheelchair who had crutches and shot from it. And I do know who that is. I've read the comics, and she's actually a bisexual, which is also really cool. And the person who plays her is also got the same disability as that Spider-Woman. So I thought that was really cool.
That's good, yeah.
Seeing that movie as well was just really, really interesting because there were so many different mixed race Spider-Men and Spider-Women and just different like culture, like the Indian one, who was absolutely amazing. I just want to see Doctor Who become more like that, just more naturally diverse. Doesn't need to try, it just happens.
Yeah, and obviously with the Spider-Man universe, obviously they're using the whole they have multiverses to have different types of Spider-Man. You have people moaning like the Disney remakes, like The Little Mermaid, for example. They're moaning that she's no longer a pale ass ginger woman and is now a black woman, and it's like it doesn't really matter because it's fiction. But also with Doctor Who, they literally changed their DNA, every aspect of their DNA. So when people moan that we've got a non-cis white man Doctor, it's like, why? When they
why
can
does it matter?
The aspects of the genetics to be completely something different.
I mean, I feel like the way I look at it is like, why does it matter that it's the Doctor, but yet we've had like the Master / Missy, and we've had like other Time Lords change like races and gender and stuff in front of our eyes. Why is it so prevalent for the Doctor? Why does it matter so much for them when it's just the exact same race? It should
I've seen no one
the complaints about the Doctor a lot at the minute. Like Moffat naturally tried, like with the War Doctor, people praised him, but when Capaldi came in, there were so many negatives about an older Doctor, despite seeing Sir John Hurt. And then we had the complaints about Jodie. after seeing Michelle Gomez. It's like the show is in a bit of a weird standstill at the
And
minute.
it's also like when we saw Gatwick being announced, I don't like saying it because I think it's a bit mean, but it's just the truth. But like the more racist side of the community actually became really, really heavy and prevalent, and shown their like how messed up they are in this community. It was really bad.
Yeah.
Like some of the comments you see are just the most unhuman, vile things you'll see. And
Yeah,
it's
I was privy to seeing it, but I'm aware Joe Martin did have a couple herself, which is a bit awful.
Yeah, I saw them too, and it's just absolutely disgusting the fact that we allow this in a show that should be treated as more just everyone's a welcome. Well, that's pretty much what the show pretty much stands for, is just everyone's welcome in this big universe. But
Yeah.
yet, when it happens to our Doctor, that's when it becomes the limit for some reason, even though they share the same race and like I was like a race that changes gender and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It shouldn't matter. Like we should be at the point now in 60 years where that shouldn't be bothering us, but it still does, and that's quite just shocking, if anything.
Oh, absolutely. And especially when now, more than ever, we're getting some of the best people to work on the show. It shouldn't matter what gender or what you are. As long as you can do your job, you can act very well. Two, you can follow the scripting that's been written. The production side has gone up. I mean, Chibnall's era has had some of the best looking monsters. Like when you look at the Sontarans, I mean, it's not that they went back to looking how they originally did, but at the same time, the production value, I think the strongest was in the Moffat era when you look at the visual effects, like when you go back to watching the Pandorica Opens, that looked like special movie stuff. But all the negative hates, all the criticisms, if you're coming into these shows to judge an actor or what they look like rather than the job they're doing for them, it should be left at the door, personally.
I think for me, it's more just this is a sci-fi show about time travel. Why should it really be mattering us about the fact that, oh, this person is black or Asian and are playing a Reed Vollard or lesbian, gay, bisexual, whatever? Why do we care?
It's like when the TARDIS is redesigned. It's like you're having such minor complaints about like the police box doors or the windows might be a little too small compared to the actor's performance. Is a bit much.
Yeah, like
it's just, I mean, the thing with sci-fi fans and like when people like a fan of sci-fi but you're racist or you're homophobic, I don't get that, because sci-fi is literally about progression. I mean, I'm gonna move away from Doctor Who a tiny bit. With Star Trek, it's shown a huge increase in racism and homophobia, but then like Michael Burnham, for example, in Star Trek Discovery, she received a lot of racist hate, and I just don't get how you can be a fan of a genre that is built around progress.
Oh, absolutely. Every science fiction show, regardless of how you look at it, will have politics in it. Like Star Wars has the politicians in the Senate, the Federation. I don't know about the Time Lords anymore because obviously we don't have them, about who's the political people now in Doctor Who, but still at the core root of it, it's about we look at how we were then, like Doctor Who in the 60s, Star Wars in the 70s, Star Trek in the 60s to now. It's all been about change and people loved it, but now it's in this decade. They're like, can we go backwards? And I'm like, no.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, like with like policies in Doctor Who and like the Time Lords, there was a whole scene in World Enough in Time where the Doctor's like, "Oh, Time Lords don't really give a shit about gender anymore," and it's probably because of the fact they can all just change their gender. They probably don't see it as a construct because
they're more bothered about what the Doctor and the Master are doing than their own genders.
Yeah, like you could die a man, wake up a woman, and I think Time Lords by now, with that ability, would have just looked past gender as a whole construct in general.
Yeah, there have been racial Time Lords which have been explored in Big Finish, but that's more towards other people, not with themselves. So if you change colour, that doesn't bother them, but when they see aliens, that's a huge problem for them.
Well, it's like another good example of the body change thing as well. It's like Romana. I believe it's Time Fracture, where it's revealed that in the future Romana is a male.
Romana.
Yeah, non-binary Romana. It's like that's been in here for God knows how many years now, but yet we don't care about it. But yet we've got a Black Doctor. But right now, that's the most worrying thing to us.
I only saw one or two grumble about the non-binary Romana, but apart from that, 2 out of the whole thing towards the Doctor's been a problem.
Yeah, like it seems to be more like if it's the main focus on the companion and the doctor, that's when it becomes like a line they cross and they get mad. I don't get it either.
And yeah, if the
Which is
master was played by a non-binary actor, people wouldn't give a hoot. I mean,
yeah,
Missy did have her complaints, but that was before Michelle's brilliant acting came into play.
yeah, but like it's like when Michelle came in though, it's like no one cared really.
I know there was
It's
one
just
person I had a date with on Twitter, and they were like, "Oh, but with the master Missy, it works, but it doesn't work with the doctor." I'm just like,
I see those a lot now. I really do. It's like, so these people who said like the master should have been exclusively male. That I see more people who are for her as a woman, but the doctor, then it's a disgrace. The show should never have done it, and I'm like, why?
So I think that that's quite an important point to raise, that a lot of the outrage is very, very performative and like stuck in the moment. So when Missy came about, like there was a lot of backlash. Like I remember like people refused to accept that Michelle Gomez was the master and being like, she should have been the Rani, because like they have to say another female Time Lord like character. It's like
"You may know."
nothing like the Rani, and the Rani is
Technically, she did on set, and then they dubbed it over.
yeah.
that's such
So
a weird thing.
it's all like relative, and like when years go by, because like here's the thing, if Jack was introduced today, you'd get people going like, oh, Doctor Who's gone woke and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt that there would have been people not using the term woke because it wasn't really like popularized in 2005, but there would have been people back then, because like I said, my parents were about Torture were like, oh, it's the gay show or something like that. As time goes on, like that sort of stuff just fades into the background. Like I wouldn't be surprised if in like 10 years time and stuff, like nobody's going to care that like, or even really remember the outrage about Jodie being cast as the Doctor, because like there'll be younger fans who have grown up with Jodie as the Doctor who will be adults and stuff in 10 years time.
But that's the point. Nearly every Doctor now, nearly everyone's grown up around him. It's like people have grown up with William Hartnell, or people have grown up with Christopher Eccleston. Each generation will have their own Doctor, and then they'll look back at the comments and say, why was this even a thing, you know?
Yeah,
People
I'm
are
gonna
outraged about Patrick Troughton.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. The people got to grow up who saw Jodie Whittaker, who saw Joe Martin, saw Ncuti Gatwa. You know, seeing
And then
kind
they'll
of
go back and look at the older Doctors and like say, why were people making like these dodgy remarks?
they can see that first Doctor scene, but Jodie got slapped bottom, and they go like,
I feel like this is also
Well,
like
yeah, it's
another,
really works for the granddaughter, but not for Bill.
I feel like this is also like there's a not even like just a Doctor Who issue, but like an issue as a whole of the internet. It's just the past couple of years, you tend to find the word woke be misused and thrown around so much to the
yeah,
point where it becomes a whole different meaning. And it's like when someone says it now, it's not more of like the word actually what woke means. It's more of just, oh, I don't like this because it has representation I don't like, because I'm
Yeah,
a
I mean,
borderline racist or homophobic,
Yeah,
and I don't announce it.
According to what it says here, it was supposed to mean alert to racial prejudice and discrimination, not the way that everyone else is using it like it's no big deal.
And like
just
now as
anything
well,
right
with
wing
like
doesn't
Simic,
like is woke. I mean, I remember when like 15-minute cities where you could like walk to the shop down the road was also woke somehow.
yeah, but like nowadays though, you get like the whole line, go woke, go broke, and it's like, what does that even mean though? Because no one's going broke with it. No one's gone broke with it though.
Oh, yeah,
Do you
people.
remember... Sorry, go ahead, Connor.
No, I was going to talk about the beer company, and they're all like,
Oh.
yeah, but I don't think. Yeah, you go on.
I was gonna say, like, in the lead up to like Across the Spider-Verse, like people were making videos being like, oh, it's gonna like woke Spider-Verse and stuff, it's gonna like flop and everything. And then like after it's been really well received and done really well, nothing nothing about it.
Well,
No,
yeah,
what are you talking
because
about?
it
It's not
became
woke.
yeah, because it became like the number one highest rated movie on IMDb
Exactly.
the day it came out, which is utterly incredible for an animated movie in general. That's 2
Yeah.
hours and 30 minutes long. Like that's groundbreaking records for a movie. But yet it still gets banned in places in the world just for having a pride flag on a wall that you'll notice for like 1 second.
Well,
Yeah,
This
and
is
we
the
will-
thing. this is why with Doctor Who going to Disney Plus, there is that concern that people like Jinx Monsoon, we don't know how they're going to affect those episodes because we don't know if they'll get banned or they'll get cut out of those countries that are allowed to have Disney Plus with the Doctor on.
Yeah, they'll definitely be banned in countries like, I know, like Saudi Arabia, China. They're major countries that, you know, will see Thing in the film and either cut it or just complete.
I think China removed the ban for Doctor Who, but I think they'll put it back on when they see Jinx and all them lot.
Well, definitely, yeah. They'll
But
just
even then, though, it's like the Spider-Verse bans still weren't like in parts of Asia or Korea and stuff like that. It was like in actual America places, like American places and lands banned it just for showing the flag. And if that's what they're just going to ban a movie for, God help Doctor Who and showing like a drag queen, a disabled actor, a transgender actor come on and do all this stuff. God help
And
them
Bonnie
not get
Langford.
banned.
Yeah.
That's more prevalent than a flag.
Yeah, but we know if they try and ban it in the UK, obviously they won't do that. But like,
Well, it won't pass. Simple as that. Because the UK is at least a bit more opening, accepting of LGBTQ.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
it has the issues.
they ever tried
It's
that,
still not perfect.
there'll be uproar.
I think since COVID, it's gone a bit backwards, but that's another story and another time for a podcast that could go on for 600 hours.
Yeah, but it is sad to see that, you know, when they announce that there's these kind of diverse characters coming in, and just see the comments on Twitter, and there's always like racist people or ableist or homophobic, transphobic, whatever. You know,
I think the big surprise for me was when Neil Patrick Harris was casted first, and then that was like the start of like we didn't know how big these castings were going to get for like the new era. Like, regardless if you're not a fan of things like Glee, which is very progressive by Ryan Murphy, or if you don't like things like RuPaul, which is very progressive as well, things like that is going to be open to virtually everyone. I mean, look at Heartstopper as well. The Boris Yaz is one of the biggest Netflix stars at the minute. It's going to be one of the biggest eras with like casting wise, and we've got returns. We've got Gemma Redgrave. We've got let's say Bonnie Langford, Catherine Tate, Bernard Cribbins. There's so much great surprises. Like we still don't know what's going on.
I think that's one thing about Russell people has gotten wrong is that they're hoping that he'll go back in his old 2005 to 10 ways, but yeah, he's proving himself to be more progressive. I mean, just having a simple drag queen actor just being a villain is like a massive like
who goes by
thing.
they and them because Jinx is I think is trans these days and non-binary.
Yeah, which is like
Yeah,
it's a big thing on its own. Like that's a massive thing.
also
Like,
Jinx's character looks so cool. I love the piano sort of thing. And the nails and the
fabulous.
Yes, Connor has joined the House of Monsoon, as it's known as.
Yeah, they look so cool. But also, when it comes to people who, like, as you said, Ace, when people like hoping RTD returns to this, you know, just coming out.
I think that was the expectation, Connor.
Period. Have they not seen any of RTD's other shows like Queer as Folk, It's a Sin, years and years?
Banana.
It's so weird. It's like they go back to this like old like thing like, oh yeah, 2005 to 10, yeah, it's coming back, and it's like, no, it's gonna be 100 times more queer, if anything. Yeah. God help you.
If that scene with, I mean, if that filming scene with Turner and Neil Patrick Harris hasn't proved that they've changed, I don't know what as they're dancing together.
But even then, though, it's like the announcements Russell's been making on the actors being more open to like diversity in the acting roles of like, you know, disabled actors and stuff. I mean, we've got 2 coming up in the new era, which is like Hebe's actor, I can't remember the name.
From Big Finish is going to be in this. Who's worked with Bonnie as well.
It's big steps that we didn't expect to see, really, if I'm honest with you. But like, it's massive. It's big steps in the right direction. It's what the show needs, and it's good that Russell's so heavily supporting it and heavily pushing it. It's what we needed.
And we like disabled rep as well. We're getting wheelchair, which is really cool. Like the woman from Years and Years, I can't remember her name. I'm really sorry.
You said Ruth Madeley, who was in Big Finish as a companion, funny enough, to the Sixth Doctor.
And also, like, Bernard Cribbins in a wheelchair, and the fact that the TARDIS is...
Might have ramps.
It's confirmed because I've seen the leaked images of the TARDIS. It does have ramps everywhere, you know, no stairs.
Yeah, that's what they did. So basically, for Big Finish fans, like, but for you who did... So Ruth plays a character called Hebe, who travelled alongside Bonnie's Mel and Colin's Doctor, and they have a ramp in literally her first episode. So for that to be on the show, they must have had a talk or something. It wouldn't be a coincidence if they didn't.
Yeah, and
But
having
even
like
then, though, like it's
artists,
still a big step in the still a big step in the right direction. We need more disability like showcasing to make it feel like they're more accepted as normal people. It should be
yeah,
shown more. Like they shouldn't be looked down on in like TV shows and stuff. Like it's a bad thing or it's going to get in their way. It's like no, it just they're there. That's the main thing. They're people as well, and this should
yeah.
And
I
we
be
need
think
to
start showing it.
congratulate Lenny as well for joining the cast because Lenny Rush is a BAFTA award winner, so he's fresh off of New Wins for a 14-year-old.
yeah, he's also 5 years younger than me, and I'm not happy
Yeah,
about that.
you and Lenny are the same age. Now you've got the youngest cast member. He's beating Matthew Waterhouse's Adric.
Pretty sure he's only a month older than Planet of the Dead, and I remember watching that live.
Yeah, but this is the great thing: is this show has always been progressive. I mean, when you go back and watch the William Hartnell era up until Colin, people like was so underrepresentation until like the 80s of Who. They started being seen as like main characters, like side characters, and then suddenly now New Who have really pushed the box. But to me, the spin-offs I think have helped diversity, and even Sarah Jane with Professor Rivers, she was so fun to watch with her. That woman with the funny Wellingtons and her like running, like I'm in Wellingtons, like running after her. It's always fun to see how diverse the show keeps getting. If the show gets spin-offs again, I do hope that they keep pushing it further. I know there's loads of talk of spin-offs returning, but we need to really break this boundary that it's wrong for people to keep looking and go, why is the Doctor with that person? Why is the Doctor suddenly looking like, I don't know, like he's got shaved hair and a dodgy mustache?
I love Shooty's looks so much. Like I thought we've seen for series 14.
The wardrobe is fabulous.
He's got a beanie hat. He's got an Afro Funda. He's virtually everywhere.
He's got a leather coat. He's got a leather coat. He's as gay as he's gonna get.
He's basically going for the greatest hits. He's literally dressed as a non-doctor now.
He's got long brown, and then he's got like a leather jacket as well.
Yeah, it's also like
very. Is the main outfit we've seen from the promo is what he'll wear, and then he just goes into the TARDIS like, okay, Ruby, we're off each week. We're going to do fashion shows and like this episode.
The orange outfit with the tartan. Have you actually seen that in filming yet? Because like they were in a car park and that's all we've seen.
Yeah, could you imagine it? Like they're wearing it for the TARDIS, really, and then what you see is like costume of the week.
It's so refreshing though, having this like massive variant of wardrobe. It really is so refreshing after so long.
I wonder if they've took that some time with the Rani, because it was hinted in there that the Doctor had all these different period outfits for all these different things, and you don't really see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 12th Doctor probably had until Shooty probably had the most costume diversity when it comes to his normal costume, but also actual Victorian wear. We saw them with 11 as well. But like Thin Ice, he's got a proper full-on Regency.
To me, that was one of the best episodes that handled racism. Like that guy that he just punched, like he could wearing like the Doctor's was like, "How dare you do this to my friend?"
It wasn't no questions asked. It was just right hook.
That's one thing we haven't really talked about as well. Is Moffat, and I mean Russell started it with a female director. Russell brought in female writers. Chibnall did both in that sense. So it's nice that Russell is continuing on that kind of production side. Or like we've got Rachel Talalay coming back, who hasn't been on the show since Jodie regenerated, when she first came into existence, when Capaldi turned into her, and she was there for when Jodie turned into David. It's nice we're getting all these old faces and new faces coming into the new era.
Mm.
Production-wise, it's just incredible that she's even back and she's directing the 60th, because she didn't even direct anything for the 50th.
I'm just so excited for this new era because I feel like it's going to be more variant in like just everyone. I feel like it's going to just have something for everyone, finally.
Whoever would have thought you'd hear the words Rachel Talalay directing Donna, the Doctor, and Beat the Meat?
I'm just so happy with how diverse this show's gonna start being now, with Russell being back and more forceful with wanting to get this diversity, and they're not being so hesitant to listen to the BBC or people hiring him. He's gonna push it.
Yeah,
And no matter what, if people are being
Yeah.
put off by Russell, it's his job as the showrunner at the end of the day to take the show to great heights.
yeah.
And that's the
we're
thing
already
with him.
We're already seeing this much with like Series 14. Imagine what Series 15 is going to be like.
I know there's all that talk that shoot's going to go on a quick holiday break, and then they're going to start later in the year filming for 15 already.
Are they
They've got to
starting
save up money for the costumes. Like they've got to start saving now.
They have a whole like money product like pot just for costumes now because I got one.
Yeah.
all the
One of my
budgets?
favourite looks for Gemma Redgrave was her Death Doctor look, and I quite like her new green outfit she's getting for Russell's era.
That's the point. Let Kate Stewart be gay. Like Gemma Redgrave wants her to be gay.
No,
like-
she definitely is. She always has been in my mind.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah.
Well, after the divorce, they've never really talked about what happened.
Yeah, they haven't really dived into it too heavily.
She gay.
Yeah, but also I love the green coat. I want it. Oh, I want
Yeah.
Shooter's coat as well, but that's like $1,000, so maybe not.
I think the best thing, though, that I'm really impressed with is that Russell went with the most popular character of classic Who was Sarah Jane, and now he's going with the most unpopular character in Mel to bring her back to develop.
Savage, like most unpopular.
It's not even savage though. It's just kind of true, which is the sad
Yeah.
reality of it.
Yeah.
Unless
But
you're like a
because
big
Paul
finish
Bond got
nut, you won't know
screaming
her.
under the stick,
Yeah.
which wasn't her fault.
I mean, the only
Yeah.
thing of Mel I've actually seen is her leaving the TARDIS and just swapping with Ace. That's all I've seen. Out of it.
Well, it's because Bonnie wanted to go. She
I've
had
also
enough.
I've seen the compilation, and it's just Mel screaming.
Mel's messy when she
Like,
leaves.
unless you've seen heard the Big Finish stuff, you won't actually know Bonnie properly because she's so different on TV compared to the Big Finish stuff.
Oh yeah, the
The Big
reason
Finish gives
why
more
she
freedom.
left in the first place, Connor, was because she'd had enough. Because she was promised to be a proper computer programmer. She was supposed to be involved with the Doctor, and what did they do? They lied to her and make her like Screamer of the Week.
But she's probably losing her voice, and she's probably like, "I've had enough."
No, she refused to do it for Big Finish. She even told them if she screamed once, she'd literally refused to do it. That was her terms and conditions. She's been really open. No, if Mel wasn't a proper character, and all you heard was, she's not interested.
Just you have Mel now, and every time she's named, she's like, "Don't do it. Don't scream. Don't do it."
Yeah,
Well, I'm
Bonnie's
happy
like,
she's
if there's
coming
one
back
scream
now.
on the page, she's not interested.
It's definitely why I'm happy that she's coming back on TV. They'll give her that actual space and area for her to
I've
develop her
noticed
character.
a little clip's been resurfacing of like, the Doctor and Donna talking about Mel, so people think she still is in the 60th.
Oh, I'm so excited for this
It
new era. It
is
looks so good.
because the promo picture they showed for Mel was on a 60th filming site, because that was from like last year of like a unit. I mean, they could be
Yeah, because
reusing it.
Bonnie doesn't look like that on the recent filming pictures.
Yeah, so I think she's in both, because that looks like the helipad they used for the 60th, but they could just be reusing the set.
See, I think what's going to happen is that the 60th is going to kick off the unit stuff, like the new age of unit, and Mel's going to come forward to be a part of it. And they're going to continue that on
Yeah,
to
she
the
got
next season.
recruited quickly by Chibnall's era.
Because it's obvious that unit is going to be a big part of the 60th. It's clear now. We know it's happening. And so this will be a perfect opportunity to start the new age of unit. If it is going to be the spin-off, get it
But
started right away.
did you clock in the recent post for Neil Patrick Harris's birthday, instead of special, which we've only seen him for, he said, we can't wait for him to be part of the upcoming anniversary specials. So he might be in
Yeah.
all three as well.
So it's exciting.
I'm thinking it's going to be like a Missy kind of thing, like where Missy just made a cameo for like the first bits, and then became like, she's orchestrated a lot. Same with Neil Patrick Harris, he's going to just turn up every now and then, just like, and then it turns out he's the one who's done everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I kind of like that storytelling. It's like, we just see little bits of like a character. And with Missy, like, it was just really cool because we didn't really know who she was.
I was too online at the time. I remember everyone immediately guessing it. I'm like, how? From the name Missy? Literally, they went like Missy, Mistress, Master, done. I'm like, if you watch Series 8, there's no information about her. Like, there's no clue.
I think that was the problem people had with Moffat's era, is when you got people guessing, oh, we know River is Amy and Rory's daughter, and you're like, how? And like, we just knew.
I mean, them guessing it is fine. It's when like they outright tell you things, like when they revealed John Sims coming back. I was a bit like, I mean,
well, they weren't supposed to. The press nearly leaked him.
Yeah, but it's when they put him in the trailers.
I still didn't see through that disguise, though, even though
I didn't see the disguise. No. I was shocked when he just pulled off the mask and it was him. But like, I was like, when's he going to turn up? When's he going to turn up? And then Razor takes off the mask. I'm like, oh, that's when.
Yeah, so basically they were going to do, the original trailer was they're going to do like a spoiler countdown. If you want to look away, look now after 10 seconds. But when the press threatened to leak it, they just like, right, we're going to just put them in the trailer anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that scene a lot, like, because well, there was kind of a shooting in my road when that scene happened with the mask. This was back in
controversially, I will say I do actually prefer him with Moffat more than I did with Russell after Series 3. It just felt nice to have like a classic star modern master.
He was more of a character than just a classic villain. I mean, I liked John Sims' Master with RTD, but definitely preferred him with Moffat.
I think the reason I did like him was End of Time. Was like when he became the skeleton broken apart. And it's just like, why?
Mr. Halloween Man.
Yeah, it's also like with like the Last of the Time Lords when they made the Doctor fly, and like he was calling just like Jesus at that point. And it's just like,
Jesus.
This whole thing that RTD is fun with writing, but sometimes I hope we don't see that kind of thing with RTD like flying.
Could you imagine it? Shooty being Space Jesus part 2.
Space Jesus.
Space Jesus.
I don't want that to return, but like
I don't want the return of
Space Jesus.
I don't want the return of Space Jesus the second. All hail the Space Jesus of Doom.
I don't know, like if we all collectively just said someone's name, like at the entire world, would they just start flying?
Yes, Garrett, jump.
we could just make someone fly.
But no, I'm quite happy with like the news we've been getting, especially with Lenny Rush as well. The guy from, as I said, the guy from Glee, because these are all different franchises that people have grown up around. So if you're not fans of those people who, I mean, I've seen people from the RuPaul fan base who've never even heard of Doctor Who, never even watched Doctor Who, and are going to watch it for the first time because of Jinx Monsoon. So we're about to get a tsunami of fans tuning in because they're fans of those people, which is quite ecstatic.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah, which the show needs. I mean, if you look at the last few years, the ratings have gone in the toilet, regardless of Capaldi or Jodie. I think fans have just collectively moved on a bit.
Yeah, they definitely have.
I mean, that's what I can't like. When a series now for a Doctor, they get great ratings for the first year, but then it goes down. People literally didn't like the idea of an older Doctor or a woman Doctor. But we need to end this barrier that everybody coming to the show now, it's okay to accept them like the old Doctors.
Yeah, we need to show that anyone can be the Doctor.
It's okay to accept people.
That's quite influential to people. I grew up with Doctor Who, and just that kind of thing was something I looked up to. The Doctor being smart, like the whole like liking space kind of thing.
And you know what? There was nothing wrong with the Doctor being female because obviously they're all the same person. They're all supposed to have different traits of each other. They're not exactly supposed to be the same.
Yeah, and the argument that like, oh, young boys can't see themselves in the 13th Doctor, I think it's like one of those Tory MPs that was like they're causing me to commit violence. I could see certain traits with the 13th Doctor that I relate to, and I'm a man.
Have you not seen like the cosplayers that go out? I mean, most of Jodie's like cosplayers are all mostly men and females.
Yeah, like I saw quite a bit myself with 13, even though she's a woman and I'm a man, because it's not just that black and white. It's a lot of different things, like the autistic coding with her character.
Actually, one of my favourite cosplayers is a gent who people know in the community as Dominic Martin, and when he dressed as Joe Martin and that ecstatic face of knowing he could relate in the Doctor for the first time. That's what we'll be getting with shooting, and that's the most incredible
it's great
thing.
with the Doctor's costumes being very gender neutral, so that anyone can cosplay any Doctor. You know, I could cosplay 13th's costume because it's quite gender neutral. And, you know, a man can easily wear that.
It's like the Fifth Doctor's outfit, but for a woman.
Well,
And
have you guys?
regular clothes looking like the Second Doctor? No, Victoria.
Well, out there is a cosplay I once saw that was the Sixth Doctor outfit, but instead it was made into a dress as like an actual like Doctor outfit. So it had like a skirt section to it, and like the stocking socks were all like patterned and stuff. And like the jacket would connect
I
to the skirt
see
and
those
jumper.
variants at cons.
It's so like good because I've never understood. It's back to Connor's thing. Like I've never understood the whole thing of like guys can't look up to women actors or lead roles, or females can't look up to male lead roles and stuff. And so it's like, well, no, they can. Nothing's stopping them. It's just you're looking at the gender, not the actual person. You know?
Yeah, I think one of my favourite looks on that note is also the Seventh Doctor. I've seen people now done the dress versions of like the Umbrella Man's look. They have the umbrella, they have like shirts or whatever, but then you see them with like tartan skirts, and it's just like it's amazing.
Yeah, but it's just nice with like especially younger audiences who watch Doctor Who, and then they see somebody who's like them. You know, I think that is great, and obviously we can relate to any actor. There's probably some things that I'll be able to relate with Shooty, and I'm white, obviously. You know, and also I could relate to Jodie with some things, you know, but like it's nice with people who are of those backgrounds to have somebody who is like them and that background's in the show.
Yeah. And while not everyone has everyone has like their own Doctor, it's amazing when you can relate to that one. That's why, we got a lot of the stands for like Jodie because they relate solely to her the most. You've got people who are truly exclusive to certain Doctors because they relate to them the most, and it's from all different backgrounds or different walks of life. That's why this show is fantastic. And despite being cancelled, yes, it's been cancelled quite a few times and brought back as a movie or whatever, it's always amazing that you had 8 blokes in the TARDIS, then you continue to have blokes in the TARDIS, and finally that barrier broke with the second 13th female Doctor. Yes, Moffat, I'm counting you for Curse of Fatal Death for the first female blonde Doctor and Joanna Lumley. So,
I've got Eric beam locators. No, those are breasts.
Those are tatas, my friend.
And the nice speech and the tone has been lowered. But no, it's amazing, this mad little box show. 60 years, we're happy to have been here, and we're just glad that you lot have either stuck around. You might be drunk as a skunk, you might have cleared off, but we're here to celebrate the Pride special for Doctor Who. This little mad men, mad women, mad they or them in the TARDIS.
Yeah. Also, I just want to say to the people who have like left the Doctor Who fandom because they've been told to fuck off by RTD, good riddance. We don't want them.
You will not be missing.
So long farewell, off Reader saying goodbye.
Yeah, fun fact, you'll do nothing to the Doctor Who views. They'll probably say more or less the same because most people are for diversity in Doctor Who. It's just those few who aren't, which, you know, I hope one
Hit
day
the road, Jack.
they decide, you know what, it's fine. But yeah, they could fuck off.
No one will miss you.
Yeah.
You have been subscribed to #NotMyDoctor with Connor. That's for next week's segment.
And when they say like Doctors are kind of woke because they've got more gay characters, Doctor Who wouldn't exist without a gay man because he was the first director, as we said earlier. Like,
What was we saying? Basically, Doctor Who has been diverse since its birth from a Canadian man, Sidney Newman. Warris is saying the first gay Asian director and the first female woman producer, Verity Lambert.
So it's been woke since '63. So shut up.
Yes, it was so woke that the first Doctor offered Jolly Snack bottoms to naughty people.
We're going to pretend that didn't happen.
Yes. First he offered his granddaughter, and then he offered Bill Potts. Who next in his first track?
Yeah, Moffat, I don't know why he decided to keep that continuity. Because, like, I'd rather that just stay a thing of its time
Sometimes I wonder if he's actually watched the episodes for one, or he just went like, "Oh, YouTube clips."
Yeah, it's also funny how like the top doctor's like, oh, Tom doesn't care about gender and sexuality stuff like that. Next
And
episode,
then next episode, oh,
finds out that Bill was gay. He goes, "Good lord!" It's like, shouldn't you be used to that kind of thing? Being gay?
Exactly. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
You're not a '60s man, Doctor.
yeah. Even during the '60s, I watched the Hartnell era. I've watched all of them. I could testify he was nothing like what Moffat wrote in.
No, he's not. I've been watching the first Doctor for like the first time. Like he says that like once with the smack bottom to his granddaughter when at a time when like spanking like kids and stuff is unacceptable and that and everything and always should have been, but like that was commonplace. It's weird.
Yeah, let's hope next time Gary Brandy comes back as the first Doctor, if that does happen.
I'll bet even the '60s, the '60s Dave returned to shooting.
Oh God, imagine that. But also,
yeah,
like
the Angel of Death is back. The first Doctor. So you thought you got rid of me then?
But also, like, imagine with like we get like Shooty's Doctor in like we saw with like Ryan in '50s America. Imagine we see that with the Doctor as well.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would hope that would be written by somebody who's black, because I think a white person.
There was death in the '60s, so.
Could you imagine, Connor, like the '60s? Like you've watched like this voice, and then it's like Tennant talking to Gatwa. Then the second that you're like, "So, my dear fellows," and you're like, "Not again."
Yeah,
not you.
I think in that '60s episode, it will be brought up. I mean, historically, Britain was more accepting of black people than America, but like there was still like, a lot of racism, as we do see still now. So I think I kind of don't. It's not like I want to see it, but like, I feel like I want to see
it.
But like, I think just to kind of show that and kind of see that struggle, I think that would be quite interesting.
Yes. Look at the. Oh, sorry. You just made me laugh too much about that one. So, while we've been on the subject of madness, we hope that you've enjoyed. I've been Matt. I've been your host, and we're going to say our good nights and goodbyes. Goodbye from Ace. Would you like to say goodbye to the people?
Salutations, and don't fall off a mountain.
Connor, your farewell.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for watching, and just remember that queer people exist. We're here. We're proud, and we're not leaving Doctor Who anytime soon.
We will hunt you down.
You better get used to it, or the first Doctor will give you all jolly smack good bottoms.
No, he will not.
we will find you out there, Kevin. We will find you.
Yeah, Kevin.
We will find you.
Yes, and to you, Raven, would you like to say good night?
Yes, goodbye, everyone.
Yes, and don't forget to subscribe below to the official Discarded Whovian podcast. I've been William Hartnell. Oh, sorry. Just slipped back in. Yes, and we'll see you all soon. Ta-da!
Bye.
Read.